you've been all by yourself through this?
I met another group after that. Broken people, running from their past. That could have been the end.
Telltale's take on The Walking Dead, I believe, is a storytelling masterpiece. Throughout its 4 seasons, this game series has not only made thousands cry, but it has accumulated 8 awards and 5 nominations. In my opinion, this game continues to be a staple of story-rich video games. So, in the spirit of Halloween, I'm going to be transforming into Clementine, who becomes the protagonist of the series in Season 2. Clementine is a character I've grown up with throughout the years, and I'm so excited to show you how I pulled off this cosplay. Clementine's hat is hands down a staple of the series. It's the only thing that she tangibly owns from her biological father after the apocalypse started. And you can actually buy these hats online, but I wanted to make my own. So to get started, I bought this distressed baseball cap from Amazon in this navy blue color, and I'll have a link in the description to the exact one I purchased. We're also going to need some paints, paint brushes, and sponges, painter's tape, a piece of white felt, scissors, fabric adhesive or a hot glue gun, and here I have an assortment of black markers, but you're just gonna need a thick one like a Sharpie and as well as a thinner one like a pen. And here are also some more paints that I ended up using. I'm starting by placing the painter's tape around the rim, or whatever it's called, that part that sticks out to the front, as well as around the seams of the front 2 panels of the baseball cap. We're doing this because we want clean lines. This front portion is what we're going to be painting, so we want to ensure that no paint drips where it shouldn't be. You know, we want to keep it clean in these streets. Now I'm taking my acrylic paint in vanilla and adding white vinegar and tap water into it. I read online somewhere that using a vinegar, glycerin, and tap water mixture as a primer allows acrylic paint to stick to fabric better and causes like the fabric to be less stiff. Not sure if that's true, but I tried it anyways, and I didn't have glycerin, so my cap was still kind of stiff, but honestly it kind of ended up working out in my favor in the end. So here you can just see me adding each layer of paint. I'm doing a total of 3, trying to get as precise as possible into each of the corners, and after I did each layer, I just let it dry for a little bit. I also decided to go for a more creamy vanilla color instead of a bright white, because any like item that you use that is white ain't gonna stay white for very long, especially if you're in the apocalypse. So if you are gonna try this DIY for yourself, I would definitely recommend getting a more creamy white color like vanilla as opposed to just a stark bright white. So here is the hat with the final layer of paint. We're now gonna create the D on Clementine's hat. This part looks slightly elevated, like it were maybe an embroidered detail added onto the cap, as opposed to just being a flush printed design. So I'm gonna be using a piece of felt to give off that similar look. I started by folding the felt in half and freehanding an outline of the D in pencil by just looking at a reference picture. And once I was happy with my sketch, I cut it out. And the reason I folded my felt in half is because now I have 2 Ds I can use in case I didn't like the look of one of them, which definitely ended up coming in handy. Clementine's hat has a purplish undertone, especially in the first 3 seasons, so even though my hat is navy blue, I just wanted to see what it would look like if I kept the D to its original color. So I took a medium blue color and added orange by mixing red and yellow together. Also be sure to shake up your paints first because mine was watery and crusty since I ain't used them in a long time. Be sure to prioritize adding the red into the mixture to really bring out that purple undertone if that's what you're going for. And then I added that color onto the piece of felt and it ended up looking something like this. I then decided that I wanted to dull down the color since the purple looked a bit too bright against the denim color of the hat. So I went back and just added more blue to the paint mixture, and then I just added that more dulled down color to the second D I created. So here's a side-by-side comparison of the 2, and I ended up going with the darker one. As our felt is drying, we're now gonna add some more details onto the cap. So first we're gonna dirty it up because listen, this hat has been through the apocalypse. She's been through some things. It can't look clean and pristine. So I went ahead and started by diluting some brown paint with the vinegar and tap water mixture that I used earlier. And I just applied this with a sponge to give it a more realistic effect because dirt don't, get onto things in clean brush strokes. strokes, so I thought it'd be more realistic to kind of just tap on my sponge like so, just to look like dirt was sort of tacked on over time. Be sure to repeat this process on both sides. I went ahead and focused putting the dirt on like the outer parts of this like half dome, I guess you could call it, and then focused on diluting it the closer I got into the center, if that makes sense. So this is what it all looks like, all dirtied up. I also added red to the brown to get a blood color, and I applied that by just flicking my paintbrush at the cap. Honestly, the blood droplets are not that noticeable. I could have used a brush with larger bristles to kind of give off that effect better, but you can see it if you look up close enough. In season 4 of The Walking Dead, Clementine's hat has this big ol' hole in the front, and I recreated it on my hat with a very thin marker. So my cap already has this distressing to the side, so I just added onto it by making this sort of like scribbling motion with my marker just to make it appear larger. I also used the same marker to add stitching to the hat to give it that cartoony effect of the game's art style. For a moment there, I tried using this ruler to make my lines straight, but it turns out that freehanding it was much easier. And then you also want to make sure you go in and carefully trace these seams. You can see I'm just going in very carefully, just freehanding the lines. So we have both the dotted stitching as well as the solid seam lines. Going back to our felt from earlier, now that it's all dry, we're gonna outline it with our black Sharpie, and we're gonna adhese it onto the cap. So I initially tried to use this fabric adhesive to tack it on, but I was really struggling with trying to get the glue out of the bottle and then also trying to keep the corners down because they kept lifting up. So I then resorted to using the hot glue gun, which worked out much better for me. The final step is to remove the tape and add the finishing touches. Look at them clean lines. So I took my sponge again and continued adding the diluted brown paint to the rim as well as to the back of the cap just to get it looking dirty all the way around like we've really been in the apocalypse, you know? And also my last camera battery died somewhere along the way, so I didn't get this on camera, but I also added some like pseudo scratches to the rim of the hat using the diluted vanilla paint color. So again, I did this to try to give off that cartoony beat up look. I'm so proud of how the final hat came out. I'm definitely going to continue wearing this hat even as not part of the cosplay because that's how obsessed I am. And it just feels good to wear something that you physically made. But next, let's talk about my outfit. In my recreation of Clementine, I really wanted to show the transition of her season 3 to season 4 look. Most of the clothes I used I already had in my closet, but there was a couple items I still needed, namely the red flannel she wears in season 3, as well as the medium washed denim jacket she wears in season 4. So I decided to head to the thrift store to see if I could find anything that would work. Not gonna lie, I got a bit distracted finding clothes that I just liked for myself, but I did end up finding the items that I needed. Here's a quick little thrift store haul. The first 3 items I got were just for me. I love the thrift store. Literally the most expensive thing I bought in this trip was this coat for $10. And then these last 2 items were actually for the cosplay. Alright, so now I got my outfit together, but before we do the full reveal, it's time for the makeup. We're in the apocalypse, so you know we're not going to do a full beat, but I do want to attempt to recreate the lines on Clementine's face that make her look drawn as if she's in a comic book. The key word here is attempt because I didn't know what I was doing, and honestly, it didn't come out that great. From this process, I learned that it's very difficult to draw on yourself. I have very little like first person hand control. Like I feel like this would have been easier if I would have done it on another person. But that's besides the point. I used this liquid eyeliner and basically just tried to focus on outlining my collarbone as well as my nose because that's where I saw the most lines prevalent in Clementine's character drawing. And here you can see me struggling a little bit, drawing some lines, then removing them, then redoing them. But hey, some of the imperfections could make it appear more sketch-like. Let's just use our imagination. I also added some mascara because although we are in the apocalypse, Clementine do got them poppin' lashes though, like girl, who's your tech? Put me on. However, I also do wish I would have used false lashes because I recreated this look a few days later with the false lashes. I just felt like it looked better. But anyways, nobody cares except for me. And then last but not least, I used this lip tint as a blush to add some color to the face. And this packaging literally doesn't exist. Let's just ignore that we ever saw that. I've had this lip tint for so long. But anyways, that is the final makeup for Clementine. Very simple. The last thing I did here was try to mess around with my hair and force it into the baseball cap. Listen, y'all, I got a small head, but I got all this hair on it right now, and my natural hair would have been perfect because, you know, Clementine black, I'm black, we got a similar hair texture, could have made it work, but I spent good money on these faux locks, and so they fun to last as long as possible. And then I took part of the front section and bunched it up into like a low ponytail, similar to how Clem wears it throughout the series. You know, keep that hair short, shout out to the GOAT Lee Everett. Then I laid my edges, which probably wasn't necessary because I'm gonna be wearing a hat anyways and we're in the apocalypse, but if I'm gonna die by zombies, take me out with lashes and edges, please and thank you. And this is the final look all put together. I am so happy with the way it turned out. As I think back to the reason I wanted to become Clementine for my first cosplay, I recall all the good memories I've had with this game franchise. Although I've never personally played The Walking Dead for myself because it's only been very recently where I've 1, had my own PC, and 2, actually have my own money to buy games if I want them, I've experienced the series through a lot of my favorite creators and really connected to this story. I've mentioned this a few times on the channel before, but I grew up with a very narrow scope of what a gamer is, and quite frankly, that person wasn't me. Even still, I continue to have doubts about whether or not I truly even belong in this YouTube niche, but I've always considered myself to be a storyteller. I believe great stories really bring out our humanity, and The Walking Dead was one of those first few titles to introduce me to the world of story-rich video games. I love that Clementine is a badass while simultaneously being nurturing. I love that Clementine's black, her daddy black. It's very rare that we get to see video games feature black protagonists that aren't a stereotype. And I also love that this game wasn't just about the apocalypse, but also low-key a coming-of-age story. I think I was around Clementine's age during the last few seasons of the game, like as those episodes were being released. And so that extra layer of kind of growing up with Clementine's character was also what made this game significant to me. So if you do decide to recreate this look, see the description for a list of all the supplies I used, and be sure to tag me on Twitter or TikTok, or even email me pictures if you were inspired by this video to put together a cosplay. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and a comment below if you enjoyed this video, as that greatly helps out my channel. My name is Asmara, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone!